And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Victoria Mary Clarke, artist, journalist, and author who channels and paints angels. And today we're going to learn about her. Victoria, thank you so much for being on our podcast and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Well, thank you. Victoria, let's start with your spiritual journey and how you went from, childhood all the way into channeling angels.
Well, actually, I did grow up in Ireland in the countryside where there are lots of fairies and leprechauns. And I was talking to the fairies just as though they were just friends, in the garden quite regularly, almost pretty much every day. I'd go out and chat to them for ages. And I didn't realize that no one else was talking to them or that no one else was like seeing them. But they must have been very good company because they kept me really entertained. And we didn't have a television. We didn't have any electricity, so we didn't have a television or even a radio, and we didn't have any magazines or newspapers. So there was no media in our house because we were living very back to nature. My parents were really into like growing their own vegetables and living. Yeah, so very natural kind of life.
Did you say you had no electricity as well?
No electricity, no running water, no bathroom.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah.
You're like the Amish in our country.
Yeah, maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't think the Amish talk to fairies.
They were basically just hippies, living as close to nature as possible. But I think when you live close to nature and when you don't have the interference of television or a mobile phone or any of that stuff, you're more in tune with yourself, but you're also able to tune in, I think, to other frequencies and other dimensions and beings, angels, spirit, all that stuff. So it's probably no, I didn't connect this when I was a kid, but these gurus who go and live in the Himalayas, they live in a cave or they live on a mountain and they don't talk to anybody and they don't see anybody and they just meditate. And that's when they get all their messages. So I think there's something in that, in being very, far away from all the noise. There's a lot of noise, isn't there?
What is it about Ireland and Iceland where they see fairies more than any other country?
Well, I suppose we have. I mean, you're right. We do have a tradition of it. And, we also have a tradition of drinking very strong alcohol that's hallucinogenic. So I don't know if that's connected. My husband also sees spirit and fairies, and he also used to see aliens and all kinds of interesting light beings. But I think he also began drinking alcohol when he was about 3 years old. So, like some Irish people do drink a lot. And then some just see it like poets. We've got a lot of poets who have seen and communicated with fairies and beings.
What about elementals?
Yes, I used to talk to the trees and the bushes as well. So every morning, because I had to walk to school, as I was walking to school, I would let the trees brush my hair and we would chat. So trees and bushes were big for me. Always had, and still are. I mean, I still find, you can't see the view here, but all I can see outside is trees. That was the beginning for me, was talking to fairies. And then when I was at school, I began to have past life memories of living in a monastery. So I wrote poetry about being in a monastery and what it was like, and the sounds and the smells and the routines, which was unusual for a 9-year-old girl, I think. So, yeah, I guess I was a very spiritual child. But my parents were also very spiritual, but in their own way. They were devotees of Osho. You know who Osho is?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a lot of meditation going on, a lot of
Mhm.
Eastern philosophy, a lot of chanting and all that kind of thing. So I was quite influenced by that.
Would you
Um,
say that your parents encouraged your spirituality or what you were up to?
I think it's more that they didn't discourage it. So they didn't discount it. You know, and we were very free as children. We spent a lot of time out of doors, just like playing in the barn or playing in the fields. Or so it was a lot of outdoor time and a lot of freedom. Like there wasn't no traffic, so there was no problem with kids running around in fields. Like no strangers and no traffic, no danger, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a very tranquil and kind of free lifestyle, which probably helps with all that spirituality stuff.
Is it still like that over there? Because, when I was a kid, both of my parents worked, and in the summertime, they had no idea what we were up to. It seemed less dangerous to
Yeah,
me than it is now. Has it changed
yeah.
over there in Ireland?
I think it probably has. I think people are much more cautious now than they used to be. So children don't really run as wild as they did. And most actually, I mean, children here from the age of 3 are using like phones and tablets all the time. So they're probably way more, um, yeah, way less exposed to nature.
So in school, you started thinking about your past lives and stuff. At that age, you understood the concept of I lived before this life in another life?
Yeah, because I guess that was something my parents would have been into, or they would have talked about at some point. The idea of past lives. I mean, we had the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We had a lot of that kind of stuff in the house, and it just came very naturally. It wasn't like it was. It felt like just a memory, like you might have a memory of going to the fun fair, or it just felt like a memory.
Mm.
Um, so I didn't think it was unusual.
Mm.
And I wrote poetry about it. But then when I was a teenager, when I was a bit like maybe 14 or 15, I got more interested in things like music and fashion and makeup and boys and discos. And so I lost interest in spirituality for a while.
Mm-hmm. Did you move from there into angels or into channeling, or what happened next?
No, it took a while. Uh, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, was interested in Eastern philosophy. He was interested in tarot, astrology, Zen Buddhism, lots of different stuff. So he kind of he taught me about the tarot and introduced me to mysticism again, like having lost interest for a while. Um, And then I got really interested because he became very successful and famous and rich. And I didn't. And I became very, I suppose, frustrated because I was trying to write, to become a successful writer myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't happening for me. So I was going to a lot of fortune tellers. So again, tarot readers, but also palm readers and psychics, of all kinds of psychics, because I guess I just wanted to know, am I going to make it? That was what was really the most important thing to me at that point, because I felt like I was surrounded by my husband and a lot of his friends, all of them really at the top of their game, very, very famous and very successful. So I felt very inadequate not being one of those people. Um, so yeah, I was very frustrated, and that's what led me to finding out about channeling, because I really just wanted to know my future. So I went to a lady called Lita Alberdi in England at the School of the Living Light, and she was a disciple of Sanaya Roman, who some of you may have heard of. She's an American. She's from Oregon, and she wrote I think 5 books on channeling. One actually on channeling, and some channeled books. A little bit in the style of Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks.
Right.
So the guide speaks through her and gives life advice mainly. And this guide was very helpful to me, the guide that she was channeling. And I think more than with tarot readers, because I think with tarot, they might say, yes, you're going to be successful, but then you're just waiting for it to happen. You're like, when's it going to happen?
Yeah.
So with this one, the difference was very, very visceral in that as she began to channel, this energy started flowing through her into me, and I could feel it. And it was the most powerful thing I'd ever felt in my life. I mean, it was like the most love I'd ever felt from this invisible being. And it kind of blew me, like just knocked me in. I was like, whoa, okay, this is something I want more of, and I want it in my life. And if this is what spirituality is, this is, I now began to understand what they were talking about, all these people talking about how God is love, because I just felt pure love. And she was offering training in channeling. So I went and did the training. And again, I began to feel that I had now got a solid connection with pure love, which I could go to anytime I needed it. And I mean, at first I began to try to apply it in a way that would make me successful, because I was still keen to get successful. But it really completely changed everything in my life, like without exception, like my relationships, my creativity, my career, how I relate to people. And eventually I began to become quite successful. So it did work, but it was a long way around. And I think it was using my desire to connect me with my heart. And I suppose you talk about, your heart's desire is what you follow. So you follow your heart. And your heart might not really know what you want, but it's got this feeling like, you might fall in love with a person and you think, okay, it's that guy or that girl. That's the thing that's going to make me happy. And of course it isn't really, because it's you that makes you happy. But along the journey of pursuing that person, you can sometimes find yourself. And I think that's what they were doing for me, is they're helping me to find my own connection, which now it's established enough that I can't imagine it going away now, because it's right there all the time. It's almost like a pulse that's happening all the time.
Do you think that letting go of the desire for success and making that connection is ultimately what ended up with you getting the success that you wanted?
Yeah, and I didn't ever let go of the desire. I don't think you can, but I explored it, and I went to, I explored myself energetically. So I began to do a lot of meditation and a lot of channeling. And I asked the guides to help me with everything I wanted. So I give them a shopping list. I'm like, can you get me a new car? Can you get me a new place to live? Can you get me like literally anything? I mean, I was thinking of some of the funny examples of stuff that they did for me. And some of it was really very, very like mundane. I had a new Prada handbag that I bought at the Prada shop in Milan. Mm-hmm. And I lost it, and it had cash in it as well as being a new Prada handbag. So I was very upset, and I asked the angels if they could help me to get it back. So they said, yeah, we can help you to get it back. So they gave me a guided meditation to magnetize it back into my field. And I did it for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then somebody rang and said, hey, I've just found this bag, and it had your phone number in it, and I knew you'd probably want it back. So I got it back. So like really small things and then really big things. They never disappointed, which I think is important.
When you first started channeling, were you connecting with your higher self, spirit guides, or angels?
So the first guide I had was a spirit guide called Ashti, who was an Indian guide. And he was very I think gentle and quite humorous. He'd have a sense of humor. He would sort of coax me along, like he would try to show me rather than tell me always. And I think that's something I found that they all have in common, all the ones I've channeled, is that they don't like to tell you what to do, because they don't like to take away your learning. It's like putting stabilizers on somebody's bicycle. They like to help you to see for yourself, so that so that you get the realization, and when you get a realization, it tends to stick. So they'll ask you more questions than they answer, if that makes sense. They ask a lot of questions so that you reflect.
Right, makes sense. Can you recall the very first time you channeled and what was going through your mind?
The first time I channeled was actually in a group, in a channeling class. And we got given a guided meditation to do. She talked us through it, and then she gave us the instruction that we should ask a question, and that we could choose whether we wanted to write down the answer, channel the answer on paper, or channel it verbally. And most people went for the channeling on paper because they were intimidated by the other classmates, and they were like a bit nervous about getting it wrong, and other people hearing, a bit self-conscious. And I definitely chose to do that at first. So at first it was on paper. So I'd ask a question, and then it would be like automatic writing. The answer would start to come. And at first it would be just one word, and then another word, and another word, until I got a sentence and then a page. So I didn't ever know what the end of the sentence was going to be. I just got the words as though somebody was dictating them to me. So it felt like I wasn't sure if I was making it up. I wasn't sure if it was real. There was a lot of doubt. And the doubt kept happening for at least a year. So there was a year of constantly doubting. And the only time I didn't doubt was when I channeled for someone else, and they said, yeah, this means, like, this has helped. This is meaningful. This is useful. So then I got some validation from that. So when I did it for myself, I was like, this might be total rubbish. When I did it for someone else, so I practiced on all my friends, and they really liked it. And, my husband liked it, and his friends liked it. And a lot of them felt that it was very, very helpful. So that gave me some confidence, a bit of a boost. So I think it's that practice makes perfect thing. You just keep doing it, and eventually you get there.
Yeah, it makes sense. Are you a trance channel? Like you go into a trance and you're kind of not aware of what's happening? Or do you kind of feel like you're grabbing symbols and messages and communicating them? Or how does it work for you?
So I don't go into a trance, but I do change my state. So I think what happens is my frequency raises. So I'm in a slightly different state. And as I go into the slightly different state, my voice changes and my posture changes, but not in a way that's weird. It's just, it slows down a lot. And, I become maybe more articulate. I do find that they have a better vocabulary than I have. And they've got a really good way with words. And some of them in particular, when I'm channeling for people, quite often it's their guides who come forward, and they start giving me the messages. So depending on the person, depending on how their communication style, the language changes. So I channeled for Nick Cave, who some of you might know, the singer, because he's a friend of my husband's, and he's quite biblical. So that the wording was very biblical. But when I channeled for my husband, who's more Zen, it was more like haikus and more kind of, a very, very different style. So it matches your style.
I'm assuming you quite often use words that you would never use in your normal vocabulary.
Yeah, that's true. For example, when they begin to speak to someone, they pretty much always begin by saying greetings, which I would never say. So they can be quite old-fashioned.
At what point did you switch from going from guides into angels?
Well, we ran the gamut, really. So we did a lot of experimenting. we would ask for always the highest possible guide or the highest possible light being. But I was interested in the idea of angels, so I asked for angels, and I began to get them. But I also asked for dead celebrities, so I got like John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, Princess Diana, a few dead celebrities. That was actually a bit of fun doing that.
What were those like?
Well, John Lennon was very, very physical. So I felt him come in, and I felt him like I could almost smell him. Like I felt his presence as though a man, like that particular man, was actually sitting right beside me. And he had a very strong mind. He was quite slightly bossy. He was telling me that Yoko Ono had been very unfairly treated and that she hadn't been respected as much as she should be. And he was like really annoyed about this. And he said, "You don't realize what an artist she is. You know, you gotta." But he didn't actually have the accent because I was doing the speaking. So he didn't have the Liverpool accent. Right. But he had a very strong male energy. And he talked mainly about Yoko and how much, he loves her and how he talks to her every day. And that seemed to be the main thing. And he played a bit of a joke on me. So he sent me to visit a house in Notting Hill in London. He gave me the address and I went there, but there was nobody there. So I felt like he was kind of playing a joke.
What were you supposed to find at the house?
I don't know. He just said, "Go to this house in Notting Hill." So I did. But there was no one there. Jimi Hendrix was more useful.
Oh, yeah?
So he taught me a little bit about music. He taught me about how, music isn't just a sound. It can also be a color. So he said, when I hear music, I see it as well. So he said, I see the colors and I hear the notes at the same time. So all those colors that he used in his clothes and stuff were very much like music for him. And he talked about the scale that we use. He said that's very limiting and that he uses much more like an Indian scale and it's got way more notes. So he's quite technical and he wanted me to try and find a guitar or find a person with a guitar so that he could channel some guitar. But I'm not very good on the guitar myself. And I asked a friend of mine and he was like, that sounds creepy. I'm not doing that. So I never got there yet. But I will eventually. I'm hoping get there, like channeling Jimmy's guitar.
That would be amazing if you could channel him, if you could play and then have him, channel, and it's like he's playing through you.
Yeah, a lot of musicians that I know, they do that. They will tune into somebody and play their stuff. But Princess Diana, she talked about women's self-esteem issues and self-harm and eating disorders, and how like in her lifetime her plan or her mission was to raise awareness of all that stuff, particularly self-esteem and eating disorders. So, but she was lovely. I liked her.
Since you and your husband, especially your husband, is a famous musician and connected with all these people, do a lot of his friends come over and want readings and say, "Hey, Victoria, give me a reading"? And
no, I've done a few of those people. Yeah. Not that many, actually. I've done some of his friends who are famous. I've done their readings. But I do like, it's a weird thing. I don't really like doing one-to-one readings very much. I prefer to do groups. So I like doing group work. I like channeling for groups, and I like doing stuff that is maybe less about people's future and more about how basically doing what the guide did for me, which was helping me to change my perspective and to understand how to make stuff happen for myself instead of somebody saying this will happen or this won't happen. So I suppose helping people to have the sense that they're creating their reality, which is what I ultimately began to realize, is that we're constantly manifesting, we're constantly creating and magnetizing the stuff.
It's interesting that you don't like one-on-one. Is it because possibly you've gave somebody some bad news and you don't like giving bad news?
No, I don't, because they don't really give news. You know, they don't. If you ask them what's going to happen next Friday, they won't tell you. They'll probably just ask you, what would you like to have happen next Friday? But it's something about the dynamic of the one-to-one. It doesn't, I suppose it doesn't motivate me. I don't feel inspired by it as much as I feel inspired by and motivated by doing group work. When you're doing group work, are you still giving individual people what comes through, or you're just giving basic information? Well, not really basic, but, you know, information for the group. Like Archangel Metatron says that this is going to be happening on the planet, or whatever. No, they don't really go into that stuff. That's something that I've never really gotten into, is what's going to be happening on the planet. I mean, they'll sometimes say things about, they'll have themes about the energy at the moment is helpful for emotional issues, or it's helpful for health, or whatever it is. But it's quite practical. It seems to be very grounded in living as a human being and how we can upgrade, I guess, our systems and our thought structures and our ways of going about our lives, so that we're living more in a higher vibration. So I guess more of a vibration of love and cooperation and compassion. So that seems to be their passion, and I guess it's also mine as well. Can you recall some of the things that angels have ever told you that just blew you away? Like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I never even thought of that. Or super profound, shocking, etc., etc.? It's never shocking. No, it's like at one point they did say to me that you will always know the truth because it will feel like it makes sense. It'll feel like it's obvious. You know, you'll almost feel like you're remembering it rather than being told. And so everything they've told me feels quite obvious. It's like it feels like, oh yeah. How did I forget that? You know, like when I first began asking for the shopping list, they asked me, how can we help? What is it you'd like help with? And I said, well, everything, because I hate my life. It's a mess. I'm really pissed off. I'm really angry. I'm very disillusioned. At that point, I had been doing a lot of affirmations, and I'd been reading a lot of self-help books. So I'd read Louise Hay, I'd read Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer. I basically worked my way through all of them, and I did all their affirmations and a lot of their workshops. You know, I went to a lot of these, expensive retreats and workshops, where I tried to make my amazing life happen, and it didn't. So I was, very, I guess, disappointed and disillusioned. So they helped me to reframe, I suppose, and to consider that if I was very much focused on the stuff that didn't happen and the stuff that I was still like missing, then I would always have that feeling, and that everything in my life would reflect that. It would mirror that. So I would always feel that there was something missing, and I would always feel I hadn't got there yet, and I'd always feel let down, disappointed. It's never enough. There's not enough. So I think I began to understand what happens to people who do become successful and famous and rich, and who then feel, is this it? I don't feel good. Like, what's going on? I'm famous, I'm rich, I'm not feeling good. What's going on? And then end up taking a lot of drugs. Right. So I didn't want to go down that route. and they helped me to reframe so that I paid more attention to my frequency and my own vibration and what I was broadcasting, so that I could then access and magnetize more of that good stuff, like the happy stuff, and more appreciation, more love, I suppose, more fun, more joy, more spontaneity, and more living in the present moment, as opposed to living in some future that hasn't happened yet. When I get on Oprah, I'll get it, I'll be happy when I get on Oprah. But then I could have ended up being on Oprah and still wondering for the next thing, like, when's my Oscar going to happen? And when's my Vogue cover? And, there's so many things to want. So I was always in that state of like, it's not enough. I want more.
Right. Now you have a book called Angel in Disguise, and it talks that you went through severe depression. When you were talking about going through all this with Tony Robbins and Louise Hayes and all this stuff, was this at the time that you were in this severe depression?
No, it was basically when I'd tried all of their stuff and I had personally felt that it didn't work. So I felt like I'd been let down, particularly by spirituality, because I thought, well, if Deepak Chopra says, I just have to follow the 7 spiritual laws of success and it'll come. Yeah. And I've been doing it and it hasn't come, then like, what's life for? Like, what's the point? What's the purpose? So I felt very, very like I was in a big crisis moment, and I thought, I'm just going to go to bed. I'm not going to do anything. I was in a bit of a sulk, I think. And one thing that had never really occurred to me was the thing of, well, if you start giving, then you'll be in that energy of love and sharing, and some stuff will come to you, and if you let it in, if you're not too angry or if you're not too resentful to let some love in or some nice things come in, then you'll start to have more of that feeling of appreciation and gratitude, where you feel good about your life because you're giving and you're feeling the joy of somebody else getting something, or putting a smile on someone else's face. That was the bit that was really missing in me. Like, because I was waiting to get happy myself. I thought, well, I just got to get all the stuff for myself and then I'll be happy. And then I'll start giving and sharing. And I think that's probably the way the world operates, isn't it? People want to get rich for themselves. And then when they're super rich, like Bill Gates or Elon Musk, then they might think, well, maybe I'll start a foundation now and I'll give it all away. but they're all waiting till they get super rich to give it away. Yeah. So I had to learn to give it away and to share and to actually connect with people and to feel people, as opposed to this idea of success. It sounds very basic and it sounds like childish and teenage, but I guess I was childish and teenage,
It's interesting to think about that. There are a lot of people who do get super rich and or successful and famous, and they're completely not spiritual.
That is absolutely true.
And how does that happen?
Yeah, I think that it can happen, like anybody can get rich and successful, but being happy is a whole other thing. Apparently Elvis was a very spiritual guy. He was reading Yogananda. He was meditating. He'd read like lots of really interesting books on the occult. He was interested in psychic energy. So he was a bright and intelligent guy. But I think he also slightly missed the point because he was also very egocentric. His world revolved around him and his needs. And if he wanted the drugs, someone had to get him the drugs, or else they would find out, that they'd probably lose their job. So we can get very focused on our own desires and what we want, and maybe the gratification thing. And but I don't think you'd have to be spiritual to be successful. There's been like obviously thousands and thousands, as far back as you can go with human beings. Being greedy is often a recipe for success. And if you're willing to beat up everyone else and take their stuff, then yes, you'll be successful, but will you be happy? I don't know.
There's a famous author that was super successful and made a ton of money, and he went to jail, I believe, for fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in jail there are so many millionaires that you wouldn't realize it.
Yeah, and I think there's perhaps another frequency where you become, you don't just believe in the oneness of humanity and of all life forms, you actually know it. So you know you're one with, I'm one with you, like we're not separate,
Right.
and you know that you're one with your audience, and you know you're one with your clients or your customers. So you don't ever want to hurt them because they're you. They're like
Right.
your family, you know what I mean? They're like parts of your body. So when you give from a place of pure love, where you actually have this desire to make someone happy, I think you can't fail to be successful if you're willing to let it back in. And I think maybe a lot of the spiritual people I've met, their problem isn't giving. Like, they're very giving. They give and give and give, but they burn themselves out because they don't receive, and they don't really feel that they deserve to receive. They don't really feel that they're worthy or that they're good enough, and so they sort of have this a disconnect with themselves. So I think it's just as important to learn to love and have compassion for, and acceptance for, and respect for yourself if you want to be successful. Which is another thing. I guess you could look at the big, like disaster celebrities like Marilyn Monroe, who always said that she never felt beautiful. Like, she always felt like she was still Norma Jean. And, everybody else saw Marilyn and she felt she was still that girl who was like not wanted. So being not wanted or being abandoned, all that inner child stuff, I think has to be worked through so you can feel the love for yourself. So it's a process, isn't it?
Yes. Do you think that we all have angels around us? And if so, what are the signs that we can look for to see that they are with us?
Yeah, I mean, I've come to believe that we do. And I know that they like to communicate in ways that are reassuring. So quite often people will see white feathers, and some people will see little like birds. But it's whatever appeals to you. I think they'll use whatever. They know what your mentality is, and they know how you think, and they know what you like and what makes you feel safe and what makes you feel happy. So for some people, they actually have to use other human beings. So it'll be another human being who will be your angel, and who'll turn up and like say the right thing. And it might be someone you only meet for a couple of minutes. You might be at the checkout, or you might be just on the street, and somebody just smiles at you or says something nice just to kind of lift you and lighten your path and make you feel a little bit better. So I do think there's all kinds and all possibilities.
How did you go from channeling angels into painting them?
It was something that I had a desire to paint, but I felt that, again, coming back to the success thing, I thought, well, I'm not going to be any good at this. So I had pretty low self-esteem. I just felt, well, I won't be any good, and then they won't be successful and nobody will like them. So I'd better not do it in case nobody likes them.
Yeah.
And then my husband had a bit of an accident. He wasn't well, and Johnny Depp gave him some paints, and he didn't use them. So I picked them up and I started messing with them. And I thought, well, I'll just do one. It won't do any harm, and I won't show it to anyone. Mm-hmm. So I did one, and I didn't know what I was going to paint, but it just began to take shape as an angel. And that was the first one I did was Michael. But then they began to take on more female forms, and now pretty much every single one I do is a female. So they're female angels, and they're not the traditional angels that you'd find in Judaism or Christianity. So they're not. There was one Michael, but that was it. It stopped there, and there was no more male angels and no more Christian ones. So they all are female, and they all have their new names, which no one had come across before. And when I Googled them, their names didn't exist, which I thought was really cool, because they've made up their own new names. And each one, when she appears, she gives me a message. So they first of all, they give me the painting, and then afterwards they give me the message.
Do you write that in the painting?
No, I don't write it in the painting, although that's a good idea. I could write it on the back, I guess. But they usually just let me write it down. So when I'm sharing them, I share them on Instagram, and I share the message with the painting on Instagram and on the website.
Are you channeling while you're painting them? Like, do you feel like you're channeling them and they're actually helping you paint them? Like giving you the vision of what they look like?
Yeah, they absolutely are, because I had no practice and no technique and no experience. So I didn't know what I was doing. So I just let them guide my hand. So I would just take, they'd say, get a pencil, get a pen, get a color, get red, get blue. I'd just do whatever they guided me to do.
Do you
it makes it easier because you don't have to work it out.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're transferring their energy into the painting itself?
Yeah. So I've had a number of clairvoyants come round and take a look, and they said that they felt that the energy coming from them is noticeable. You can really feel that. So they're feeling and seeing. And one of them told me that she recognized one of the beings in the painting. So do I know that? I know her. I know who she is. I've seen her. I've seen her, and she's talked to me as well. So they obviously have other people that they talk to or communicate with.
Just from looking, I'm assuming that the paintings are rather large, like behind you, and then what you have on the, and then what you, and then on the wall behind you, are those just prints made from the paintings?
Those are prints, but they're about the same size as my originals usually start out. So most of them start out quite that sort of size, like A3. And very occasionally they go a little bit bigger directly onto a canvas. But that's probably just for convenience for me, because I can sit with a piece of paper on my lap and do it.
Can you tell us some of the messages that have come through from your paintings?
I could if I was on my Instagram. Okay, so
what about the one behind you?
Hang on, hold on. So can you see this one?
Mm-hmm.
So she's called Violetrea, and her job is to help people to transmute their feelings. So they're like, if you've got stuff that you do in your life that isn't serving you, patterns of behavior or arguments that you always have with somebody or whatever it is, she helps you to transmute it. So she's here, I guess, to upgrade people's energy. And that one behind me is the Angel of Justice. And so she's about helping people to come to a place of equanimity with each other. So to find fairness and to find justice. That one is about supercharging the energy that you bring through. So she's about giving you a bit more oomph, a bit more power. Metatron, that one is like, I think that one is more about very quickly shifting you. So a lot of people don't really want to change. They don't want to grow. They don't want to evolve. They want to stay the same. And they know that there might be something they could be doing with their life. They might love to do, but they're perhaps scared to do it. And they're hesitant and they just want to stay in the comfort zone. So Metatron is the one to push you beyond your comfort zone. And the evolution is very fast with Metatron.
Has any of
they
them...
all have.
Go ahead,
they
I'm
all
sorry.
have. There's another one you can't really see. Galatrea. Oh, hang on, you can. I'll just show you. So this is Galatrea. And she's the angel of inner guidance. So she really helped me to, first of all, to paint, to channel the angels, but she also helped me to connect with my own path. So like if I'm stuck on, like, where am I going to go next? What do I do next? I just ask her and she'll tell me, like, she'll help me to get clarity on the path. So really good for clarity.
Will you channel her for the clarity, or you just kind of
Yeah.
ask and it comes to you?
So I kind of I ask her, okay, like, what do I need to do now? Well, how can I get to where I want to go? Or what's the right thing to do? What's the best thing to do? What's the piece I'm missing? Because I think sometimes if we're stuck in a way of thinking, we can just have a blind spot. You might think, hey, well, I'm doing everything I can and it's not happening. So what's going on? And it's all their fault. But actually, there might be something that you're doing that isn't helping, or something that you're thinking that isn't helping, or some kind of, a belief that you're holding, or a pattern that's just not, that you don't see it. You're like, no, it's not me, it's them. So when we have a lot of blind spots.
How often do you channel angels?
Most, like, several times a day. So I'll start in the morning. I'll do it first thing in the morning. And then during the day, I ask for guidance on whatever's happening. So to help me to get on the most, I suppose, the highest vibration, the highest frequency. So if there's something it's feeling clunky or sticky or not pleasant, I'll ask them to put me on track. So they're always putting me back on track and helping me to, I suppose, not just knowing what to do, but also getting out of my own way, getting out of like a lot of giving me confidence, giving me that extra bit of courage that I need to take risks, because I've had to take a lot of risks. Even just putting these things on Instagram and putting my messages, I was risking people, I suppose, like giving me like negative response and ridicule and all that stuff. So yeah, when you put yourself out there, you go beyond your comfort zone, you're open to people's judgment and criticism and all that stuff. And
I think
you need warriors helping you.
Right. I think that's the price. If you're going to do that, that's the price to play the game.
Yeah, it's true. But some of us are sensitive and we don't like
We might find things that we don't like about ourselves.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's definitely true. So we find these things that we don't like, and then we have to find love and compassion for ourselves and acceptance. And we got to find our own way and be gentle, and also not get in anyone else's way as well. Not try to tell anyone else that they're wrong and we're right. I mean, I especially found that during the pandemic, because my response to it was to sit in this room and tune in and ask for guidance and ask if I could be helpful, but also stay high vibrational and loving and accepting, because there was massive changes happening in the world. And, I felt like I wanted to give love to people, send healing to people. And I also wanted to have a good time and stay happy and stay healthy, and all my family and everybody. So I spent a lot of time just meditating, but then other people perhaps would have felt that was a waste of time. And, why are you doing that when you could be doing something more useful, or I don't know. So you have to stay in your own lane.
Now, I know that you've taken these paintings and printed them on fabric and make like scarves and other things. And when you said the pandemic, maybe you're already doing it, but that would be really cool to put an angel's face on a mask.
I did. Yeah. I have an angel mask. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I felt
it looks cool.
I felt it was a good idea to do an angel's face on a mask, partly because, when you're looking at somebody wearing a mask, it can be a bit frightening.
Yeah.
Because it can make you feel like you're in hospital or something, or at the dentist. So if you see somebody wearing a mask and it has an angel on it, it's less frightening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did angel masks. Lots of angel scarves.
Nice.
And this pendant is one of that same angel on a pendant.
That's cool. What is the metal that's made out of?
It's silver.
Silver?
It's silver. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Must be pure silver?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great fun experimenting with scarves and jewelry and all the stuff.
So,
I even made yoga mats. I have a yoga mat,
uh-huh.
but you won't be able to see that, will you? Because it'll be too big.
We can try.
You can try. Okay, so these are my yoga mats.
Yeah.
So I got to the stage
that's
where
cool.
I'm actually, yeah, they're nice and thick. So I did a lot of yoga as well, and I have these dolls, which are the angels made into dolls, knitted. So I got a hand knitted doll for every angel.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's been very fun.
You're doing the paintings and you're creating all these things. What else do you got going on?
So I'm working on a couple of things, working on a film about all of this stuff, and also working on moving into teaching it in groups. So teaching people how to connect for themselves and how to get the guidance. And I think it's nice to share that stuff because I feel like everyone can do it.
Yeah. What do you think is the trick to it?
I think the trick is it's the vibration. So once you can access the frequency of love and the frequency of compassion, you open yourself to all of their energy and their messages. So I think if you can be still and feel love, then you're very open to the messages. And that's the trick. Being able to be still, so being able to still your mind, so meditation, being able to meditate for maybe 20 minutes at least or half an hour. So you're very still and you focus on love, so you're receptive and you're vibrating at their frequency.
I have heard before, and I kind of think also that the angels have got to lower their frequency a little bit at least to kind of reach us.
Well, yes, that is definitely true. It's a step down. It's like electricity, isn't it? There's a step down process. But I don't think it's that they have to lower their frequency. It's more that they permeate your layers of resistance. And they do it, I suppose, when you're in people get receptive when they're relaxed. So if you're doing something you really enjoy that's very relaxing, and that could be like, for some people it's gardening, or for some people it's walking the dog, or it's baking something, or, people get into this lovely state where they're feeling really chilled and they're really happy and they're really appreciating life and they're just like feeling in the zone. And that's when all this stuff can come in because you're receptive. You're not, in that mental, like, analysis, calculation, manipulation stage.
But I know exactly what you're meaning. It's like, you're almost meditating. You could
But there is, scientifically, Joe Dispenza talks about go from your beta state into your alpha state into your theta healing state. And once you're in your theta healing state, he reckons you can access your higher consciousness and your potential and your like more of your power. So like he reckons healing takes place in the theta state and also manifestation. So, if you've got something you're really set on and you want to make it happen, get into that state and then create from there. So it's the creative state, and it's the state where ideas come and imagine, it's your imagination and it's good in the best possible sense of the word, because I guess imagination can take you into lots of dark places too.
Yeah.
So you get creative in a good way.
Do you have lucid dreams, or do you have any special type of dreaming that you do?
Not really. No, I used to lucid dream as a child. So I used to program all of my dreams, like programming, like writing a film and then stepping into it. So I would decide, tonight I'm going to be a fairy princess, or tonight I'm going to be this or whatever, doing that. So I did that every night as a child, but I lost that ability when I was about 12. So since then, my dreams have been pretty regular. Like sometimes I have interesting dreams, but they're not that interesting.
Do you have a favorite angel?
It's very hard to choose. Like, no, I couldn't say I have a favorite. No, that'd be bad. That'd be really bad.
You have all these angels around you.
Yeah, they're all like, no, you don't have a favorite. Although I really like Metatron because I liked being, because I play it safe a lot and I don't really like change, and I have a comfort zone and I'm very happy with it and I don't want to go beyond it. So Metatron has been helpful for me in really pushing me beyond anything I thought was possible. Like in particular, doing these paintings, getting them out there, making stuff happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That was where I was hesitant.
Do you find that when you go beyond your comfort zone, that's when you grow and you make strides?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Like once I've done it, like, I step on a stage and I give a talk and I'm terrified, absolutely terrified. And I step on there and I do it. And then I'm like, wow, how could I have not wanted to do this? This is so exciting because it's such a buzz when you go into and you do something that really challenges you and you get there and it works. And it's really exciting.
Have the angels given you anything like prophecies? Like, have they told you this may be happening in the future and be aware of this?
Yeah, one time they did. So they took me on a bit of a journey once into, I think it was 2045 I went to, something like 2045. It was at least 25 years into the future. So it might have been 2055. And there were a lot of children teaching adults, like literally. So the way we have schoolrooms, there were schoolrooms with adults sitting in the rows and children standing up doing the teaching, which was very interesting. And there was a lot more traveling in sort of these bubbles that were in the sky, but they were like small bubbles that were moving around in cities, and they didn't seem to be connected to anything. And I noticed there was a lot more greenery in the cities. I was in a city. They took me to a city in America, actually, somewhere in Texas. And there was a lot of greenery and a lot of these bubbles. And they showed me that children are teaching now, and adults are getting it. They're understanding that children are the teachers and they're literally letting them teach. It seemed very positive.
Traditionally, I thought angels were basically messengers, like messengers from God. But it seems like they do so much more.
Yeah, they help you a lot.
Do you have like a basic definition, like what are angels? If someone asked you, like, what is an angel? What do they actually do?
Well, I think that definition has to be as expansive as the angels themselves, because I don't think you can nail them down, and I don't think you can define them, and I don't think you can limit them in the same way that you can't limit spirit. You can't really say, well, spirit is this and it's not that. I think angels are basically whatever they feel like being. In the same way that human beings are all different and are all, we're light beings in human bodies, and we're here experiencing human flesh, but we're also simultaneously, I feel, experiencing being light beings. So we're combining the two. And I think that angels are like that. They're light beings, but they're capable of taking on form if they want to, and they're capable of making appearance like dressed in purple or dressed in gold or however they want to appear. So I think their consciousness like us, but they're more evolved in the sense that they don't really have this need to try and get stuff for themselves. They've gone beyond that. So they're very, very loving, very they're more, I suppose, because they vibrate at the frequency of oneness. It would not enter their minds the idea of trying to compete or trying to get something that at your expense. So they're all about sharing and loving and caring.
I want to switch gears with you. If people want to see more of your angels pictures and stuff, you mentioned Instagram. Is that the best place to see them?
Yeah, well, I have a website, so victoriamaryclarkeangels.com.
Okay.
I think I've put nearly everything there. I'm not very good at all this stuff. Like, I'm still learning about that kind of thing, making sure my website's up to date, all these things. But I'm going to get there. I know I am. I think it was more important for me to really delve into the creation and the inspiration. And then my next stage is really going to be sharing it with people.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to change your hat, to go from artist to business person.
Exactly. I might find someone to be that for me, to do that part for me. Yeah. If anyone's watching and they want to do it.
I noticed you also have a YouTube channel. What kind of content are you posting there?
So all of the stuff on my YouTube channel is it's videos where I will either have a member of the public come and ask a question, or I will let the angels give a message. So there's questions that they answer for people. They're usually quite general though. They're not like, am I going to get married next week? They're not like that. They're more, how can I get beyond bereavement, or how can I get beyond addiction, or how can I have like better health or more money, or so more generally useful for everybody. The questions,
makes sense.
Fear, all these kinds of things.
And your book, can we get that from your website, or do you get that on Amazon?
Yeah, you can get that from the website. Yeah, so you can get some of the stuff from the website. You can definitely get the silver pendant that you've had your eye on. I can see you have your eye on it.
All right. Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
So my really strong conviction that has been road tested by me is that you can actually change your experience by changing how you vibrate. And it's been very challenging for me, and I've worked on it a lot and felt very frustrated. But now I'm at the stage where I know that I can, get in alignment, tune into love, ask that I be guided, and be guided to be as loving as I can, and, for myself and everyone else. And as I do this, I notice that people are nice to me everywhere I go, like literally everywhere. Everybody from the people in the shops to even policemen are nice to me. Like everybody's nice to me all the time. So I feel like I'm getting the validation all the time. So I'm getting feedback, and nice things happen to me. Like I've had some incredible experiences in the past couple of years. I mean, even during the pandemic, I got to walk the red carpet with Johnny Depp and wear a beautiful gold gown and feel like a princess. So I felt like a success, So I think a lot of the things I thought would make me happy are beginning to come now, now that I'm open to them.
Do you think that once you just change your frequency and your thinking, everything can go from being a negative world you live in to a complete positive world? Just like you're saying, everybody's nice to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to make sure that you're not trying to interfere with anyone else's journey or their path, and don't be judging other people for what they're doing. Let them. You got to be. Acceptance is key, and even stuff that you think, oh, that's really bad, you have to accept it, because if you're not accepting something, if you're resisting something, then you're staying below the frequency. So the frequency is pure, and it's acceptance, and it's oneness. So there's nobody can be left out. No matter how bad you think they are, they can't be left out. Because it's like you're leaving out a part of yourself.
Right.
Judging. Like Jesus said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And other stuff about, like forgiveness. And I think forgiveness is huge.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting is when you take the thought of if we're all one basically, and let's say you play a game and someone else wins, well, in a way you still won too, because if they win, you win.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Although it's still fun to play, isn't it?
Right. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us today. I'll put your links to your YouTube channel and your website in the description. And I hope you not only maintain the success you have, but even grow it to massive success.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel like I already have in a weird way. Just because it feels like success is something that's just in the moment, It's not really in the future. It's right now.
So are you saying
right now I'm successful?
So are you saying that it can't be more?
I'm not saying it can't be more. I think there's loads more fun to have, but I feel like there's so much more in the present moment than we ever know.
Yeah.
That it's really very precious.
It's kind of like you don't even know what you don't know.
Don't know what you don't know.
So what I'm wishing for you is more success that you don't even know you could have.
Yes,
that's even possible.
I love it. I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
And for you as well.
Thank
more
you.
Success than you thought you could have. And I hope you get that for Ethereum.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. All right. Oh, I wanted to ask one last thing, and I'm glad I just thought of it. And that is, are you open to the public? And what I mean by that is, if people want to ask you questions, can they, reach out to you on Instagram or somewhere else?
Yeah. So it's easier if they do it through the website, because my Instagram, I have a lot of followers now, and I get a lot of messages every day, and I don't have time to read them all.
Yeah.
So until I get a secretary, I think email me through the website. Yeah.
I was just thinking you need to put one of these angels to work to be as your secretary.
I know. Get me a secretary. Yeah, you're right. That'll be the next thing.
Yes. All right, Victoria. Well, thanks again. I wish you the best and have a great day over there in Ireland.
Thank you. And you as well.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.